Hey, Ace family!
Welcome back to our channel, guys.
What's going on, everybody? If you are new to this channel, make sure you hit that.
It'd be so nice for all of us. Just like, first of all, seeing her more, spending more time with her, having like more quality time with her in the morning. Second of all, she's helpful with the kids, so I feel like having her here would be nice, just with another baby coming too. Like,
something's off, but I don't know what. Chances are, if you're feeling that, you are being manipulated through principles. Taking something that looks nice and kind, but you're doing it with a dishonest motive because you really want something.
What's up, Team DO5? Okay, so I normally don't do this kind of thing, but I'm getting all kinds of hate right now.
And sharing the good, the bad, the sad, everything with you guys on my channel. Aside from having my son, that has literally been the highlight of my life.
Hi everyone, it's me again. Squish Gang is present and we are in an entirely new environment because I just moved hundreds of kilometers away from where I used to live. So this is going to be the setup for the foreseeable future, I think. If things are a little bit different, that's the vibe. I already like the look of this a lot more. It's giving way less, you know, government building vibes like my other place. So that's really cool. And we're coming back today with the rhetoric of family channels. I kind of feel like it would be fun to kind of come back with a bang. This video is requested. Has been requested to me via DMs, via comments, Twitter, things like that. So I do want to say that there's definitely a lot of trigger warnings for this video, such as child exploitation, abuse, lying, cheating, scamming, manipulation. There's a whole lot to go through. I also want to say that we are going to lightly touch on Daddy05. However, I'm not going to put any clips in because actually that's too triggering for me personally. And I'm just really not, I can't do it. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to touch on most of these things as lightly as possible because also this whole debacle is pretty hard to deal with and hard to manage. I just graduated university. That was like the last you've heard from me. I also got reached 10,000 subscribers. Thank you so much on my drive on the way here. So if anybody wants to do a live stream or a special video or something, let me know. Also, any links you need, books, Amazon wishlist, Patreon, everything down below. Thank you to my patron homie Squish Gangs. The names are going to put them right here. So thank all of you as well. Also, if you want to skip the intro, timestamp is down below for everything that you need. In the past, when I've talked about family channels, I've kind of made a point to avoid any conversations revolving like kids and anything around the children themselves, rather just focus on the parents. In this, I'm talking about my videos about the LeBrand family and the Ace family specifically. This, we're going to have to touch on the kids a little bit more, obviously, given the nature of the video and the fact that I'm going through like the idea of family channels as a whole. So when we do that, we're going to do parts of the video. In this case, we're going to put this into 3 parts like I normally do. We're going to begin by talking about the parents. Then we're going to go into talking about the clickbaits and cycles of outrage that those parents create through their content. And then we're going to end with the kind of concept of how they profit off their children and how I kind of feel like the conversations around this and how they've existed in the past are not properly representative of the situations at hand. And I feel like there's a bit of issue around how they're depicting this. And I'm just going to touch on how I feel about that a little bit. It'll all be chaptered down below. But now we'll get straight into part 1. But thinking about the idea of a family channel and the fundamentals around how they're kind of constructed and the themes that they utilize and the conversations that they have, I kind of can't help but think about the TLC show, John and Kate plus 8. I feel like that was the beginning of the family channel arc and the family channel era and how they constructed this kind of idealized idea of the family model along with this kind of extravagance around seeing the children grow up and the crazy antics you would go on by having a lot of kids. Because another thing I've noticed with a lot of these family channels is they just keep having babies. Like, oh my god, when is Catherine McBroom not pregnant? Like, for real, like, I don't think she's pregnant right now, but I think that's like the first time I've really, like, in a long time she hasn't been pregnant or with a newborn baby. If you don't know what John and Kate plus 8 is, it's a show where a husband and wife who actually ended up getting divorced and they became Kate plus 8 just depicted their lives of them and their 8 children. If I remember correctly, she had all 8 of the kids at once, like octuplets. If I'm wrong, I'll correct that with the... Regardless, they have 8 kids. Okay, that's all that matters. And I feel like if we're talking about like this model, like how similar is 8 passengers as a concept to the concept of John and Kate plus 8? While maybe they didn't directly utilize that model, like they were like, maybe they've never seen John and Kate plus 8, or first off, I feel like some of them had to have seen it. And I just feel like the family channels are so similar when you're looking and comparing those two things. A lot of these channels seemingly started as a collection of home videos. These things were typically private, right? Home videos were typically something that you maybe showed your friends or family or close loved ones. And that was about it, right? You weren't really putting them out. The only time or instances I can think of besides the current environment of family channels would have been something like America's Funniest Home Videos. But even then, that wasn't like consistent collections of the same kids. It was this collection of like, you know, one-off videos of funny circumstances. But for some reason, when they were putting these videos on YouTube, they gained popularity. Now, there's a lot of debates around why this happened in the first place, especially because a lot of these people have quite young audiences, but some of them have more problematic audiences of certain people who are attracted to people they should not be attracted to, that are predators for children, child predators. That's been a huge issue with these types of family channels when you used to read the comments. A lot of content with kids in it now, as a result of those types of things, actually is not a lot of comments. The parents were obviously the ones that run the channel, who are the face of them, for lack of a better term. Now, it became apparent through looking at these that the parents were very attention-seeking and really desired to just be famous. And I'm wondering if a lot of these parents had either failed prospects or some sort of lack of talent. It seems, because they all have this very, like, Jake Paul font clout chasing personality. Like, they're very into this like fame, but then they kind of push it onto the idea of like being family people, or, you know, loving their kids, even though a lot of these actions that they're doing are quite exploitative. Now, an example of that comes to my mind was how Austin McBroom was said to have like a really high profile professional basketball career. Apparently he had quite good stats. He was very good at playing the game, but then all of a sudden he just started making YouTube videos and then just stopped playing basketball. Makes me wonder, maybe if in school, maybe his grades weren't up to par for the game, like to be able to play in varsity, or he was too small, maybe, I don't know, or like it wasn't going to work out for him. And then, but he wanted that fame of being like an NBA basketball player. This is alleged, by the way. These are just kind of patterns that I'm noticing, and thus kind of wanted to get fame, like, you know, through his videos. Same thing as like Daddy05, right? If we're looking at the dad, he's very like kind of tries to put himself as like a robust person and somebody who, you know, runs the family and is like big man, but he's very like camera hungry and like hogs attention. Like he tries to pull attention. But what's sickening is that they're using these innocent and unique experiences of young children as their way to exploit them for internet fame to fuel their own egos. And that's obviously super disgusting, but it's also something that I haven't really noticed people talk about when we're having these conversations about family channels. And while I will argue that the degrees of parenting on these channels, like how poor they might be seen as, obviously do vary a lot. The worst, I would say, objectively being Daddy05, especially given that actually like in, I want to say 2018, 2019, two of the kids, especially particularly the ones that were at the brunt of most of the abuse and jokes and all that stuff, were taken away from them. Again, like I said, I will not be putting any footage of that because when I was researching this video, I had been kept up with most of the family channels to some extent, to their most recent controversies, 8 Passengers, LeBrand family, obviously, I just made a video on them, and Ace family, etc., right? Daddy05 I hadn't heard much from since, I want to say, 2019, right? And I forgot how bad it was. I went back and watched the Nerd City documentary, which I'll tag down below, on Daddy05, and I had to like skip a bunch. I had to keep hitting the 5-second scrub thing because I just couldn't watch it. Like what they were doing to Cody with, I just like, which is interesting because another thing I've noticed with myself, at least, is I have quite a high tolerance for being able to like look into things and research things, just given even just like my experiences with education and stuff. I've had to read some pretty harsh things and look into pretty harsh stuff. But the sheer like lack of all human emotion and empathy and devout of any sort of seemingly care for his own children, the experiences and actions that he would put against this child were just so beyond any scope of reality that I could conceptualize, that I just I can't even look at the camera. I'm just like, I couldn't even fathom it. It was absolutely obscene. One thing I could say that does bring all of these families together as regards to how the parents have constructed their families is they follow the idealized family model. Now, I have a video on the Ace family called the Ace family, the modern American dream, something along those lines. This talks about that idealized family model. So I will tag that video down below if you do want to watch that to go into that a little bit more. But essentially, it's typically like, somewhat of a nuclear family, definitely straight parents, typically married. or have been together a long time, daughters and sons, and then they always like have pretty patronizing conversations towards the daughters. Like I know Austin McBroom talked about like his daughter Elle not being able to have boyfriends ever or something like that. And in contrast to how they treat their son, things like that. So those kinds of like pretty typical, like I almost want to say like American Christian models of families, but obviously that doesn't necessarily encapsulate everything. But there's 3 categories of those parents and those types of family models within the biggest family channels that I could find. So they typically fall under one of 3 categories: either God-loving parents, so-called humble or wholesome family model, typically middle-class looking, regular family, a working man, working family, or your clout chasing Los Angeles parents, which we would assume is the Ace family. This comes through as the ethos of each of the families. As a reminder, ethos is the kind of persona around a certain individual when they're trying to deliver a rhetorical message. This is a reputation and how it is crafted in the case of these families. YouTube is a platform where, beyond most careers or ways of life that we've ever had in the past, is most dependent on ethos. Even and since even like the Greek amphitheater arguments that kind of was your origin of rhetoric in the first place, it's so dependent. Your personality is your brand. Your personality is your income. I don't think it's even comparable to things like actors, because actors in their movies are portrayed quite differently than their original person. These videos are supposed to be authentic. That is the design of the entire platform. You are trying to see someone's personality. Now, obviously, as how YouTube is developed, you have a bit of a different set of kind of types of videos and ways that people perceive themselves and ways and what people put out on the internet. Like I know for me, my personality is not super coming through on a lot of these videos, more so on things like my live streams. But at the same time, it's like these families try to push that authentic model of like that we're just typical family people and we're putting on the most authentic face possible. It's also not comparable to celebrities because of the parasocial relationships formed along with the origin of the YouTube platform being this sort of authenticity, this place to just put your little videos where you talk to people, just to kind of this social media to communicate with each other and comment and share videos. We're talking about God-loving parents in particular. Their channels often have a weird mix of political and social ideology, intertwined with essentially exploiting their children for fame. With these parents in particular, I have a huge problem with the way that they utilize a platform crafted by their children, essentially, to share their own questionable moral views. Now, if we think back to this in particular with the LeBrant family, how they have a family channel that they then put an abortion documentary on YouTube from the fame they grew off of their children, with this weird message of like savior complex structured video around saving babies. Now, when we look into that, I want to read from Kenneth Burke's Rhetoric of Religion, which describes the feelings of needing to spread any religious message through any meaning possible. It's been suggested to me in my comments as well that I should put the text, I should like type it on Vegas and put it at the bottom. I am going to do that with the quotes from now on so you can read along as well, especially if I am reading a little bit too fast, which I do talk quite fast, so I could totally see that being a possibility. So, Kenneth Burke writes, "But machines are given such purposes by men, since languages make it impossible for men to be content with sheer bodily purpose. And insofar as men cannot live on bread alone, they are moved by doctrine, which is to say, they derive purpose from language, which tells them that they ought to want to do, tells them how to do it, and in the telling guides them to great threats and promise, even unto the gates of heaven and hell." I'll type the actual proper quote down below. My handwriting got a big yikes in one of the sections, and I cannot figure out what that was. So this is talking about how you're moved by language, and you are perceived by the idea that you need to do anything by any means possible to get to heaven or hell, whether or not you are in a position where you can have those conversations or not, right? Since language makes it impossible for men to be content with sheer bodily purpose, and insofar as men cannot live on bread alone, right? So you are guided and you are pulled by this idea of pushing that doctrine, of spreading those messages, whatever means possible in which you can get that platform out. So in this case with the LeBrant family, that means is their kids, which if you think about it that way, it's sickening. Some family with daughter that they want to pull out of school at like 9 to help raise the kids that they're telling people they have to have. The LeBrant family is saying that under any circumstance in which you get pregnant, you need to have the kids while simultaneously being ridiculously privileged and wealthy and not even being able to handle the amount of kids they currently have without being at the expense of one of their own one of their own children. Like, you don't need a rhetoric degree to like know that argument makes literally no fucking sense. Like, you have to have babies. You person who like could like potentially be lower class, low upper middle class, whatever, doesn't have a lot of money is what I'm trying to say. While us, huge rich Hollywood family, money, and a whole community around us can't even raise our own damn kids. Now, if we go to the humble or, wholesome family model, this is given the ties to the nuclear family in particular, like this specifically. Because the nuclear family, if we recall, typically lived in like a bungalow in a suburb, and there is 2 parents, 2.3 kids. Which 2.3 kids typically ranges anywhere from 2 to 3 kids, right? That's just because of how things divide. With these families, when we're talking about family channels, they will manipulate their own idealized standard to deliver their, like, weird messaging. Because if we recall Daddy-O-5, when he found controversy a couple of years ago, I believe their story ended up on, like, actual news sources. I want to say they also ended up on Good Morning America, or Good Morning America talked about it. I'll put a clip of, like, them kind of trying to defend themselves in their apology, right?
I am ashamed. It started out as family fun. It started with me and my kids, but them it was just about making a video and then making the next video more crazier than the next.
There we go.
And they talked about family and like supporting, and we're just trying to do the best for our kids. This is a project that our kids wanted to do. This idea of, so if we're calling to the nuclear family, right? That would typically be dad is working, mom is at home, kids. He's trying to say we're even better than that idealized model because mom can be home and dad can be home because of this project we do with our kids. Because ideally, the dream family is parents get to stay home and don't even have to work. That is why things like multi-level marketing companies, a lot of their popularity comes from that in the first place, right? It's that idea of that mom doesn't have to go out and work, so you can at least have somebody at home raising the kid. Daddy-O-5, they were leveraging this idea against this platform where they quite literally harassed and abused their children on camera for money. And especially because there's an idealized view of like dads bonding with their kids because of that nuclear family model lasting for so long and still being pretty prevalent today, having fathers more detached from their children because they're working all the time. So that's the thing, they're taking pieces of that model to their advantage based on the fact that on the surface they are a white middle-class family living looks like in a suburb type thing. They have a lot of those pieces, so they're kind of picking and choosing the said pieces to work within an idealized model. An idealized model too that has a lot of perceptions of like kids in school. A lot of the books you're reading, a lot of the media you interact with, a lot of things you see is typically white middle class suburban families that as that idealized model. I have a book here. My bookshelf's right here now too, right? This is called Schooling in Transition. This is a book I used for one of my education courses at the University of Waterloo. And this one talks about how the perceptions of family models in schools have kind of made it really difficult for kids with, let's say, 2 moms, 2 dads, adopted children, foster kids, etc., being able to get along with other kids in school because they're almost ridiculed for that cause of like how their family is their family model, right? So that idealized model of that nuclear family also contributes to the fact of their audience being so young. Because I just want to add before we go to the next part of it with the clout chasing parents is I feel like if it was like 2 daddies 05 or 2 mommies 05 or foster family 05, things would be different in how long it took to be able to get the messaging out there and to see what had happened with that whole ordeal. That might be based. That is a legend. But that's just how I feel. That's how I feel, I think. So if we go to the clout chasing Los Angeles families, obviously they don't have to live in Los Angeles. But it's just like, that's like the vibe. The YouTubers move to Hollywood, blah, 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 blah. They live in something hills. Typically this model is associated with like people like the Ace family. However, even those more Christian families like the LeBrant family or 8 Passengers still kind of have that energy with like, even like the super white house that doesn't look lived in, like it doesn't have stuff in it. Very wealthy, very privileged model, and that's something that people strive to have, right? Because if you look at like the videos like Daddy05's videos, they don't look super rich, right? The clothes they're wearing are, you know, probably from like, is it called Ross in the United States? Like Ross or Walmart or Target, something along those lines. They're not wearing designer, right? Because if you look at like the Ace family, it's like there's like big diamonds and huge house in the hills and all that kind of stuff. These families are typically the least relatable, but they gain their popularity by being in this lifestyle that their young audience strives to have. Because if you think of like the regular YouTuber, right? Vlogger and content creator is a job that a lot of people want to have. Think about this in the way that imagine you could do that by just having kids. Like you just have kids in the house. I have a whole video on the Ace family and this model, like this like idealized nuclear model, which is like still straight, still has a couple kids. But instead of living in like a suburb, you're like an influencer. So you work your own hours. You don't have to do a standard job. Mom and dad can be home. The kids seem happy. Schooling is like not optional, but can be kind of shifted with at home or a lot of these different aspects. It seems that people set themselves up to be a family channel simply with the opportunity to replicate this kind of cloud chasing Los Angeles family lifestyle. But with their manipulation of the children for content being the result of this cause, it's weird because it seems like it's simply easy to make the money with your like quirky and wacky children at the forefront of this content. And I feel like this also devolved into a lot of these like super weird clickbait family channels. I'll put some of the thumbnails up. I think I have to censor some of them, if I remember correctly, if the ones I'm thinking of are actual family channels. But you know what I mean? There's definitely a lot of outrageous actions in hopes of being able to grasp this model and to be able to be a part of this whole thing. So now we get to part 2, clickbait and cycles of outrage. Clickbait for many creators is just something that's kind of normal to the platform. It kind of comes with everything, though it's one thing for an adult to pose for a thumbnail. You know, one of those types of things, or make up an extravagant storyline or make up an extravagant title, but to condition a child to participate in that is a different thing. So if we think about this, one of the most recent controversies of this, it was a family channel or a mommy vlogger at the very least named Cheyanne. She had a vlog where their dog was sick. In the vlog, she needs an editor. Well, she needs to like not make videos, but like at the very least have an editor, because the controversy comes from the idea that, the event that in the car, she left in a clip where she was telling her kid that they had to cry for the thumbnail. Like that the kid wasn't sad looking enough in the thumbnail pose that she wanted to use. What I'll do is I'll put in a clip from like a commentary channel, and then I'll tag whichever one I've chosen in the comments, just because they've censored it and everything, and then it's clipped a little bit easier. But
directing and guiding her minor child to fake cry for a thumbnail for their YouTube video.
Go like this, put one hand up, go like this. No, go like this. Put your hand like this. But let them see your mouth. Let them see your mouth. I don't know, Mom, I'm actually crying.
As you guys know, the thumbnail plays a key role in getting people to click on YouTube videos, which in turn translates to money. Jordan is currently receiving a ton of backlash over social media in regards to this clip, but personally, I believe that this clip shows everything wrong with family vloggers.
so in looking at that, that is one of the most recent controversies of this kind of clickbait and outrage cycle that these channels are doing, because you know, even the fact that you and I have heard about this person means that it's worked. Arguably, because I'm going to assume my audience is not family channel watchers, or at least at this time. And I had no idea who Jordan Cheyanne was before this, and I had no idea who 8 Passengers was. I did not know who the LeBrand family were. The Ace family is a little bit of a different thing because they're almost like regular influencer too, because they interact with people like with that charity basketball game they did a couple of years ago that had influencers like James Charles, and Ace family did makeup with James Charles at one point, and there's a bunch of different like kind of interactions with those people. So like that's a bit of a different story. The Ace family, so this was like 2018, 2019. Around this time too, their house allegedly got broken into. The house they lived in before the house that got foreclosed on. Anyways, so there's a thumbnail where they're holding, like Catherine's holding one of the kids, and then I believe it's Elle is like posing like this or something like that, right? And so they've staged the thumbnail with the broken glass door for their video where they talk about someone breaking into their house. Austin is vlogging through the house that had like just gotten broken into, allegedly, with his kids still there. And then this goes further, like I mentioned, with those more obscure, super clickbait thumbnails from those more obscure family channels. So besides simply clickbaiting through thumbnails, there's a combination between spreading messages that bring forward outrage along with carrying out your own doctrine at the expense of your kids. Because you have to remember, because the kids are the forefront of these channels, let's say, for example, the LeBrand family, when those kids grow up, you know, even if they go to high school where people are a little bit more cognizant of these types of things, they're going to be like, your parents made the, oh, aren't you the kid whose parents made that, like, inflammatory, falsified, bullshit, fake, terrible abortion documentary with the doctor that said it was easier to give birth via cesarean than have an abortion, allegedly? Yeah, I don't want to talk to you. Imagine trying to get invited to the birthday party when those are your parents, you know? And while that doesn't sound like the most of these kids' problems, being outcasted like that at a young age is really damaging fundamentally, like for, you know, the formative years of a child, right? Because the LeBrand family is the worst for carrying out their doctrine through their channel. Even if you open their channel, the channeler has like a Bible verse in it. They have the documentary, as I mentioned before, they just put out. But they also had one where they clickbaited their child having cancer called She Was Diagnosed with Cancer, which had like a picture of their family while one of their kids, not Everly, it was something else. They all have weird names. But one of their kids had a lot of health problems in the past. I talked about this in my LeBrand family video, which I'll tag down below, but I'll also put in the cards and everything. They clickbaited their kid being sick as a premiere, right? So you couldn't even like click on the video or anything. You just knew that it was going to air. And then they changed the thumbnail due to the controversy. But again, those associations for their kids are going to carry on with them past this point. If I meet a LeBrand family kid later in my life, or even like was it Chad from 8 Passengers, because he's like in his late teens or mid-teens by now probably, I feel like I would be compelled to ask about their family, right? Like that's what I would know them from, is their family. Same thing is like, you know, you see Jaden Smith, if they never got famous or they never tried to be famous, like, oh cool, you're Will Smith's son, and ask them, inquire about that, right? Because some of these family channels have videos with like 25, 50 million views. Like, they're not small channels. They're some of the most popular on the platform. In a way that we were all rhetoricians, which we are people who make arguments and try to get their point across and try to kind of give or take in life, which rhetoricians are especially prevalent in those who make content. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a message, no matter how mundane it is or not. My message in this case is to tell you about family channels and the messages that they're trying to put across and how they're harmful, but how also I kind of have disagreed with the previous conversations around these family channels. When these messages are intertwined with fame or wealth, there becomes a lot of complications, especially because often there is lack of an expense to their own children. Like, they don't see how much it can affect them in long term, especially because it's such a new phenomenon. So when we talk about Richard Weaver, who is a rhetorician I talk about all the time, he talks about kind of the way that rhetoric involves in existence. And he writes, the base rhetorician, we may say, is a man who has yielded to the wrong aspect of existence. He has allowed himself to succumb to the sights and shows, to the physical pleasures which conspire against noble life. He knows the only way to get a following in his pursuits is to work against the true understanding of his followers. So this is what Richard Weaver is saying here, is that idea of needing to be against the grain is at times the best way to deliver a message and seemingly the only way to deliver a message. So again, the controversy set up by people like the LeBrand family, the Ace family, 8 Passengers, etc., is something that they will go off of no matter what to be able to gain more following. That's why I would almost argue that Jordan Cheyanne thing with the son trying to pose for the thumbnail, she left that in on purpose. Same thing as there's that infamous clip where Austin's like kind of being really rude to Catherine before they're starting a video. He was like, oh, my hair's all messed up. And then they go, Ace family, right? They do that whole thing. He allowed himself to succumb to the sights and shows, to the pleasures in which conspire against noble life. He knows the way to get a following in his pursuits is to work against the true understanding of his followers, right? It's that to go against that, like, people believe they're this picture perfect family model, blah, 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 but they wanted attention outside of their fan base and outside of the sphere that actually believes in that. So I would argue they purposefully left that clip in, likely, allegedly, to get that outside audience of against what his followers believe. You see? Smart. Thinky box. We're using it. We're using it today. So this idea of gaining recognition through the contrary is what Weaver is describing here, right? Despite these processes being against YouTube's like moral code, which is typically to be authentic and to be honest, these ways are the most effective when it comes to delivering any sort of message outside or against your own audience. And like I said, I mentioned this before, the fact that you and I likely, obviously, again, I'm not assuming that all of my audience never watch family channels, but based on my demographics, conversations and videos, comments I read, etc., we don't delve into it that often. The fact that you and I know these people, or those of you that do know people I've talked about, yada yada, whatever, means that this model works. As unfortunate as it may seem, we do talk about outrage on YouTube. I have videos about YouTube outrage and cycles of controversy, and I'll tag a couple of them down below. It's an unfortunate reality in content creation and in the realm of YouTube. Now we're going to get into part 3, profiting off of children. So this section is a lot of my own opinion and structures that I have seen versus conversations that we've had regarding profiting off of children when it comes to family channels in the past. This is not to dog on anybody who's had different opinions than me. I just kind of want to throw some more topics into the conversation. It is no secret that the main factor that gained any of these people an audience is their kids, like their children, right? In order to keep these people watching, they must include the children in the content. Like, if a lot of these family channels never put their kids in again, nobody will be watching, okay? That's why the kids are in all the thumbnails, the kids are in the banners. That's why the kids are in the thumbnails, the kids are in the banners. That's why their pictures have the kids in them. That's why it's family in all the names. LeBrand family. Ace family. I guess in this case, 8 passengers, but passengers means members of something, so family, right? So this is self-explanatory, right? Yet many are already calling into question what will happen when these kids age out of these family channels, especially because they grew up and had most of their formative years on screen, and they were put forward for the whole world to see. I think the first person we're going to see this happen to is named Chad Frank from 8 Passengers, because he seems to be the oldest of the family channel kids as far as I understand. For those of you who are not necessarily familiar with this kid's name or can't really remember the 8 Passengers, because I had to dig a little bit myself, there was a lot of commentary videos about this, I want to say a year or 2 ago, that talked about how he had played a practical joke on his brother. He had like hid something from him or something like that. And then his mom sent him to like a wilderness juvenile correction camp. So like where they throw kids in the woods with like a rucksack and they're like, go live in the woods for a week. I remember Tozy had a video on this in particular because he talked about those camps and what they're like. So these camps are often associated with harming the kids, harassment, abuse, etc., and with some of them some camps having kids pass away at them. If you want something to relate to a little bit more, I guess, recent, or something that's maybe a little bit more, I guess, for lack of a better term, like that reached more attention, Danielle Rigoli went to what was called Turnabout Ranch, right? And the experiences that she described there were quite similar to the type of treatment that the kids at the wilderness camps would get from time to time. Having Chad go to that sounds like it was a pretty traumatic experience. The mother would do ridiculous things like take away his bed for like months. Like, there's a lot of just horrific parenting practices from that family as well, allegedly. So Chad had a channel at one point. However, he has not uploaded in several years. And a lot of these family channels recently too have not uploaded in several months, which is quite interesting. I want to inquire about that one. I'm wondering what's going on with that. Regardless, Chad and Sherry both had channels. Sherry is the daughter, like next one down. If I remember correct, it's so good. I don't want to watch a bunch of their videos because it's like, I don't want to give them any money. So I've just kind of been looking at articles and stuff like that mostly. So they have not uploaded for several years. To my understanding, Chad still lives there. So we'll see what happens in the next couple of years when he ages out of the family maybe, or if he keeps ties with them, or how all of that works, because I'm genuinely curious. There are many factors around family channels that people wish to make rhetorical comparisons with. Rhetorical comparisons, for those who are not aware or do not know, is to argue two things that seem similar given some sort of overlapping argument between the two of them. The rhetorical comparison that most people use are child actors versus family channels. Now, I want to say that I don't agree with that as a concept, and I'll explain why. For one, people will always go, well, child actors have guidelines and there are laws to protect the children, and why don't family channels have those laws? Almost kind of creating this like utopia around child actors, which is not at all the case. Allison Stoner made a video about how her experiences as a child actor and talked about how easy it was to get around those laws. especially if a kid is working on multiple sets. Because let's say that is the law at the time, or the regulation is 6 hours a day. If you work 2 movies, it's 6 hours per set. At least at the time that she was acting, that's how she described it. So that means you're working 12 hours a day, let alone the psychological trauma that can come from acting out certain types of scenes, the lack of assistance for these kids. Because one thing you have to kind of, or not have to, but you could give family channels in contrast to actors, is the kids don't have to like frequently pretend they're dying, or frequently pretend that they're like in a horror movie, or that their mom died, let's say, which is the case for some child actors, right? So there's definitely a different dynamic there. That's why I'm saying these things are not as comparable as I want to say. And the reason why I don't want to compare them is because I feel like we need to evaluate family channels on an entirely unique wave in and of themselves. So child actors tend to not only support their families, but they also support a team whose interests regarding them are only to make money. These things that would be like managers, agents, vocal coaches, acting coaches, etc. While this is not always the case, it is frequently the case with these types of channels. Family channels, while not having these types of regulations, you also tend to be within your own family. Like you're working with your parents. Like I said, you're not put in a position where you have those traumatic acting experiences, and you don't have those types of teams. However, it does become an issue when your boss is your mom, right? In a way that like that would not be the case necessarily for child actors. But also the confines of what the kids get to do or the content they make are not nearly as strict as child actors. Like a lot of these like kids content, like a lot of the content with these family channels from the videos I did see was like the kids playing. And while there's a lot of like kind of more traumatic experiences, such as like your first menstrual cycle being filmed, or like your first date, which is like invasions of privacy, the structures around them are not the same. And I'm not at all saying family channels are any better than child actors, or the protections are any better, or anything like that. What I'm trying to put into your mind here is that they're not the same, and they should stop. I don't think it's helpful to compare them, because I feel like it reduces the struggle that the actors go through, and it nominalizes it. It makes it less like attention to it. And also that, like I said, family channels are a whole entirely different way of life. Because again, too, the parents of the actors are typically not in the public eye themselves, or much less so than the parents in these family channels. So there's way less of a reputation that has to be built in the family as a whole in comparison to something like a family channel. I feel like trying to compare these details, like, or these two different ways of life, kind of derails the reality that these two different ways of life face. And it is placing parameters just essentially of one exploitive industry versus the other, instead of keeping them as two separate bays to protect kids in each one of them individually under different circumstances. These kids, both child actors and these family channel kids, need to be prioritized, right? Because on one hand, child actors have some mode of privacy while the family channel kids don't. The type of work of one versus the other could arguably be more intensive for actors, or different resources available are going to be very different. And I think that the comparisons are not helpful, because while both make money off of the kids, the way that it's managed, the way that it's made, the way that the laws exist around them are so incredibly different that I don't see it to be helpful to have them both. And they should just both be recognized as problematic industries that need to be readjusted with the children at the forefront and at the priority. So to conclude, in conclusion, we went through several aspects around these family channels, right? From the types of parents, to the doctrine that they spew, to the clickbait and the outrage that they create, to the way that it compares to child acting, and the way that we perceive family channels and interact with them, and the arguments that they make, and the rhetoric of it all. All I want to say is they still suck. Family channels suck, and I don't think they should be on the platform. I don't think that you should be allowed to have featured children in videos, point blank, period. Especially if they're young like that, or if they are maybe a limit on the type of content they can make. But I just don't think children, it's the same way that you can have a Facebook profile before you're 13. You shouldn't be in videos that generate revenue under 13. I almost feel like videos with children in them just should not be able to like make money if the children are the focus of the content. If you have a kid and she's running around the background, that's one thing. But when your income and prioritization of all of your content is around those children, I find that just has so many issues that you kind of can't really get around it. But regardless, like, comment, subscribe. Patreon, Amazon, books I used, videos I used, people's videos I use, everything is in the description. Let me know what kind of content you want. Let me know what you want to do for the 10K celebration, because I don't really know what to do. Because I just always do lives. Is that what you want? Do I play Among Us? I don't know. And yeah, you guys have a great day wherever you are, and I will see you around. Bye.
I'm telling you guys, bro, just get a cosplay and stand on the fucking roof.
So I can't stand on my roof because it's slanted and I'll end up falling off it, but I can stand on my wall, and I must say, this is absolutely spectacular. I'm actually...
What the fuck are you doing outside?
I'm living the dream. I'm living the